All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Think about your absolute favorite movie. Chances are the environment around the characters plays just as big a role in making you believe that universe as the actors do, right? Well, today we're going to look at the real bricks, mortar, concrete, and stone that literally bring our favorite fictional worlds to life.
So what on earth do a California Civic Center and a vast Tunisian desert actually have in common? Honestly, the answer lies in the sheer magic of movie sets. Both of these vastly different real-world locations have served as the physical foundations for iconic cinematic universes. They prove that with the exact right camera angle and a brilliant architectural canvas, the completely mundane can become truly extraordinary. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with architecture as a character, move into sci-fi and dystopian futures, and then building magical fantasy worlds. After that, we'll hit luxury, drama, and action, setting the stage for horror, and finally wrap up with stepping into the screen. Okay, let's jump into part 1, architecture as a character, moving beyond the background. You know, Hollywood has had a really close working relationship with architecture for over a century now. When a director chooses a location, they aren't just looking for a convenient place to put the camera. They are casting a building for a very specific role. There's no narration without a stage. There's no creation without art. This quote absolutely nails our thesis for today. Movies and architecture are completely intertwined art forms. They merge to make these wild, fictitious visions spring to reality. The script and the set are essentially the lead and the supporting role, working together to make us feel something profound. Moving right along to Section 2, Sci-Fi and Dystopian Futures. Sleek curves and imposing concrete. Whenever filmmakers want to show us tomorrow, they lean heavily on the architectural choices of today and yesterday to visually dictate whether that future is utopian and sleek or bleak and oppressive. Just look at the Marin County Civic Center in California. It was actually the renowned architect Frank Lloyd Wright's last ever real-world commission before he passed away. But on screen, it seamlessly transforms into the sleek, futuristic space center in the 1997 sci-fi film Gattaca. With its futuristic curves and those unmissable blue domes, this mid-century modern building barely needed any dressing up to look like a cutting-edge facility reaching for the stars. But what happens when the future isn't so bright? Enter brutalism. This mid-20th century style is all about imposing forms and raw concrete, completely rejecting any fancy ornamentation in favor of bold egalitarianism. But here's the fascinating irony. While it was originally designed with socialist ideals of equality in mind, filmmakers absolutely love using its starkness to represent the exact opposite, dystopian control and overwhelming state power. Directors constantly weaponize this architectural style to build these oppressive cinematic fortresses. Stanley Kubrick used the rough concrete of Brunel University to reinforce a tone of harsh rawness and entrapment in A Clockwork Orange. You see the exact same thing with the massive concrete blocks of the University of Toronto used in Resident Evil Afterlife. These huge, monolithic structures expertly lend a harsh, raw, and almost monstrous effect that just instantly heightens our feelings of apocalyptic resistance or totalitarian repression. Let's trade that cold, dystopian concrete for Section 3, building magical fantasy worlds, castles, and desert planets. It's amazing how historic, ancient structures can completely ground otherworldly magic, making the impossible feel incredibly real and tangible. For example, look at the 11th century Norman fortress of Alnwick Castle. It was magically transformed into Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. This very real, heavily imposing stone courtyard in Northumberland served as the exact backdrop for Harry Potter's first flying lessons, and where poor Neville Longbottom famously lost control of his broom. Now, let's jump from a cold English castle to a scorching desert. George Lucas expertly repurposed ancient, semi-nomadic Berber multi-story vaults, known as Qusor, to instantly build an authentic, alien desert world. These were originally carved into soft rock by Berber tribes all the way back in the 11th century to store grain. But on screen, they became the slave quarters where Anakin Skywalker lived on the planet Tatooine. The unique, organic shape of these historical vaults basically did all the heavy lifting for the set designers. Next up is Section 4, Luxury, Drama, and Action, Palaces, Paths, and Plazas. Shifting the energy to high society drama and explosive action, architecture becomes the ultimate showcase for power, extreme wealth, and high-stakes excess. Imposing, aristocratic estates naturally lend themselves to portraying elite drama. Highclere Castle is practically synonymous with the aristocratic wealth of Downton Abbey.
Hatfield House's 17th century Tudor halls have hosted both Batman and the Crown. And the Biltmore Estate, this lavish Chateau-esque mansion built in 1895 that is the absolute ultimate expression of grandeur, was naturally cast as the home of the wealthiest kid in the world in Richie Rich. The architecture literally does the talking before the actors even say a word. But wealth isn't just about old money estates. It's also about slick corporate power. Contrast the daily reality of the Fox Plaza in Los Angeles, a flashy, modernist corporate skyscraper designed in the 1980s, with its action-packed alter ego. Yep, that is Nakatomi Plaza, the infamous terrorist target in Die Hard. And what's wild is that the building was actually still in its final phase of construction when they filmed the movie. It just proves that a 34-story high-rise can quite literally co-star alongside Bruce Willis and become one of the most famous buildings in cinematic history. All right, slowing things down to take a much darker turn. Section 5, setting the stage for horror. Imposing structures of suspense. Isolated or heavily Gothic architecture perfectly sets the stage for psychological terror. In horror, the building isn't just a location, you guys, it's very often the monster itself. When the opening credits roll over the real-world Gothic exterior of New York's Dakota apartment building, its formidable presence immediately establishes a foreboding, terrifying atmosphere for Rosemary's Baby. The pointed arches and heavy stone facades evoke an immediate sense of dread well before the sinister plot even begins to unfold inside. And the power of isolation is absolutely undeniable here. On one side, the Timberline Lodge in Oregon stands as a stunning masterpiece of rustic American craftsman style, nestled high up in the mountains. But thanks to Stanley Kubrick, it is forever branded in our minds as Stephen King's horrifying overlook hotel from The Shining. The rugged, isolated beauty of the real-world lodge translated perfectly into inescapable, snowbound terror on screen. 237. Okay, I've got a fantastic piece of trivia for you about this exact location that really shows just how much influence these real-world buildings have. So in Stephen King's original novel, the haunted room is room 217, but the management at the real Timberline Lodge actually asked the filmmakers to change the number to a room that didn't exist in their hotel. They changed it to the fictional room 237 on screen simply because they were worried that actual tourists would be way too spooked to ever book room 217 in real life. And that brings us to Section 6, stepping into the screen, how to visit your favorite worlds. This is honestly the most empowering takeaway of this explainer. These incredible places are completely real, and you can step right into them. You don't just have to watch these worlds, you can experience their architecture firsthand. If you visit Alnwick Castle today, you can actually take free broomstick training in the exact same Outer Bailey courtyard where the Hogwarts students learned. The wizarding professors running the sessions will literally teach you how to mount and maneuver your broom for the perfect photo op right where the movie was filmed. How cool is that? Or, if you prefer sci-fi over fantasy, you can travel to Tunisia and literally walk through the abandoned Mos Espa spaceport. You can grab a meal in the underground troglodyte home of Luke Skywalker at the Hotel Sidi Dris, or even hike through Star Wars Canyon. Fans have even banded together over the years to save some of these sets from encroaching sand dunes, which just proves how much this architecture means to the audience. Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker, said this about filming on location in Tunisia: "If you could get into your own mind, you really felt like you were transported to another world." This quote completely proves the transcendent, immersive power these real-world architectural locations hold. They don't just trick us as viewers, they actually transport the actors, grounding the fiction in something beautifully real. So, from stark brutalist dystopias and Gothic horror apartments to magical medieval castles and sun-baked desert planets, think about the incredible architecture we've explored today. Ask yourself, based on the buildings alone, which cinematic universe would you choose to step into and explore? Thanks so much for joining